So hello. Um, if you're watching this video, you probably also don't know who I am. So, I'm not gonna invent myself, but I will show you what into context about what this video is about. You probably already read the title and you're talking about my fears of the NFTs and trading card market. So, I'm a trading card collector. So I collect Pokemon cards. I have two binders of Pokemon cards at the back there. I have also Vanguard and Digimon cards. I'm planning to also expand to other trading card games like Magic the Gathering, and other cards as well. Wise Swords and other trading card games as well. Now, I'm raising this video up because I'm currently seeing a situation where I think everyone who's watching this video also would agree in this, which is that we are seeing a very big issue with the markets for the NFTs and trading cards today. And trading cards, I mean not just Pokemon cards, not just Digimon cards, but also your sports cards and whatever. And we're seeing that the prices are, for the layman, and honestly, me and myself, are quite ridiculous. Honestly, like a card that is like this, a piece of a thin piece of paper, essentially, that is made of no less than maybe 3 layers, can go up to the cost of 420,000. If you've read, for the Charizards, and for the Charizards that were like PSA graded 10, and you have trading cards of Michael Jordan selling for over $100,000. We have NFTs, of the first ever tweet ever done by Twitter, on Twitter, selling for, I think, which sold for $3 million. And I think it's a issue that we should all take part. Even if you don't really care about trading cards or you don't care about NFTs, I feel that it is a issue that we should all take part in, because it is something that needs to be raised, and I am honestly quite surprised that not as many people have raised it as well. So nowadays we're seeing, like, I'm gonna talk mostly in the terms of trading cards, but this, for the most part, all these points are also applicable for NFTs to the most part, which is that nowadays we're seeing people who are buying these not necessarily because they have an actual genuine affection for these cards. Like, people who buy these cards last time in the 1980s, I mean, nowadays they bought it because they actually like the cards. Like, maybe you really like the Hariyama, maybe you like that Mudkip, maybe you really like the pictures, maybe you really like, maybe even if you're a competitive player, maybe I use the cards to play against other players in tournaments and whatever. For trading, for sports cards, maybe I just like a very nice picture of Michael Jordan, and I want to put it in a binder so I could open it up and see every day, you know. And that was all fine and dandy. It was a free market whatsoever. But I'm currently afraid that this is a bubble that is waiting to burst. And the reason why I say so is because currently what we're seeing right now is that a lot of people who are buying these trading cards and NFTs, they're not necessarily buying them because, I would not say that this is for everyone, but I'll say that a large proportion of these buyers are buying it because they see it as an investment, which it can definitely be. But I feel that it is this whole idea that it's bought as an investment, that the price got skyrocket, and everyone has like jumped on this bandwagon that these items are now a worthwhile investment, and I'm not really seeing how volatile it could be actually, and how dangerous it actually could be. Because think about it, the fact that a card like this the price of three sheets of paper glued together can be worth more than 1,000, possibly into the tens or hundreds of thousands, is, it's quite a big inflation in price. And oh yeah, I forgot to mention, like, I'm not an economist, but I'm not planning to take economics in university, but I feel that this point needs to be shown, you know, which is that, I feel that this is a very dangerous thing that is going to happen, and it's not just going to affect buyers, but it's also going to affect the rest of society as well. So, the problem about it is that everyone's buying this. So, going back to my point, people are buying these NFTs and trading cards in a way that they're buying them so that they see them as a worthwhile investment, that they know that they can sell it in the future for a higher price. The problem about that viewpoint is that you require us, to sell it, you must require someone to buy it from you. And as you know, the demand curve, anyone who is that, actually, everyone knows the demand curve. So price and quantity demanded, the demand curve always slopes downwards. And as price increases, since the downward curve, as price increases, the amount of quantity demanded will approach zero. Of course, not necessarily that it will always around to zero, but I'm afraid that it will in the future, that the quantity demanded will reach zero. And I feel that if this whole idea that the price are going to keep increasing over and over time due to inflation, or maybe because of increased demand, and I feel that everyone jumping into the bandwagon is quite dangerous because it's increasing the demand currently. So more people jump in, which then increases it, and then the price skyrockets even more and more, which then leads to the point where, if it pushes the demand curve rightward, the price doesn't rightward, yeah, maybe the price will go even higher before it even reaches the end. But I feel that this is a very, very scary thing, because, yeah, if I'm not wrong, Logan Paul bought that one illustrator Pikachu card for $1 million. But the fact is that he was one buyer out in a pool of a very, very limited number of buyers. And I'm afraid that these markets are getting a lot more volatile, in the way that in the future these prices are going to inflate to the point where no one's going to buy them. And I mean it when I say that. Like, no one's gonna pay $1 million for one egg. And an egg can be considered a necessity, But even if you gave me an egg and you charged me $1 million for it, I'm not gonna buy it. I don't think anyone who's rationally sane is gonna buy it. And for a card like this that is completely not a non-necessity, it is quite literally not a necessity. It is literally just three pieces of paper glued together. The price is going to reach a plateau somewhere, and when buyers say enough is enough, we're not going to buy for any higher price. And I feel that once there's this like mass realization that no one's actually gonna pay these kind of high prices, the market's gonna crash. And I feel that this is a bubble that is gonna be waiting to burst. And once the bubble bursts, the value of those cards that were graded, that everyone hoped will be in thousands, hundreds of thousands, in the millions of dollars, suddenly all their inventory and stock turns to essentially zero, to become zero. Most people lose their savings that they invested all into these cards and NFTs, and they lose all their savings and they get their fingers burnt really, really badly. And I feel that this is a very, very concerning topic, not just for them, but also for you and me, for the people who don't necessarily collect cards or collect NFTs, or if we do, we don't collect them as a very, very high long term investment, you know, because this is a bubble that is not just an isolated bubble. This, because I say that because we've seen this before. This happened like and I'm afraid that this will happen like the dot-com bubble. When the dot-com bubble burst, businesses liquidated, people lost their jobs, and it's quite a bad. A lot of people lost their jobs, and it had long-term effects. Yeah, the thing is that it doesn't. Yeah, nowadays in the future we don't really see after almost a decade of the dot-com bubble, we haven't the side effects of the bursting of the bubble burst isn't really that apparent. But the fact is that in those first 2 years, those were very, very uncertain years, and I'm afraid that once the bubble for the NFTs and trading cards burst, that's when not just they are screwed, but the whole population is screwed, because these aren't just your isolated people who sit in basements all day and never talk to anyone else. These are people who you live with. These are your employers, these are your friends, these are your colleagues, these are the people who you work with, these are the people you meet, these are your family members. You may call them foolish, but the thing is that their actions have long-term effects that not only affect them but affect others. Let's say your employer was one of these investors, and immediately they lost all their savings, they can't make payroll, people get fired. And I feel that that's a big problem you need to really see, because this is going to be a big thing. Of course, not as big as the pandemic. Maybe not as big as the pandemic. The pandemic was just a horrific thing that not only just take lives but destroyed, essentially wrecked the global economy. But honestly, it's probably gonna be a big trauma to the global economy as well, considering the fact that NFTs and trading cards have become so apparent in our real life. And I feel that this increased demand due to the hype is just gonna lead to a bubble bursting. And as more and more people go into the market in hopes that they will get better returns in the future, that they will get their fingers burnt. And because everyone's going into it, the bubble burst may come earlier. Bursting may come earlier. And once that happens, I'm afraid for what will happen. Not only, of course, my collection, of course, I don't just collect because I like the cards. I collect because I also care about the monetary value. I want that such that when all the hype dies down, I can still sell away my collection for a decent heap of change. But it doesn't change the fact that I also collect these because I do like cards. I like the fact that I can just open my binder and see, wow, I have a mudkip. I can look at the art form and see, wow, this artist is quite nice. This artist, their artwork is quite good. And the fact that I can pull out these cards and play them in tournament, I can play them in tournament and win tournament and actually win prizes from tournaments, is also quite a big upside for me as well. But for those who enter because they think that it's gonna be a worthwhile investment, I'm afraid that they're gonna get their fingers burnt because they put in too much money and they are not ready for what it is. Now you may call them fools or idiots who put all their savings to volatile markets. But the thing is that I don't think they understand how volatile this market could really be. And again, I reiterate, I'm not an economist, so take my words with a huge grain of salt. But I do feel that this needs to be addressed because it isn't really addressed too much. And I feel that maybe I'm wrong here, and I'm completely fine if I'm wrong, which is that maybe maybe all the collectors, maybe a large enough proportion of the collectors in this space are not collecting because they are looking at it as a long-term investment, but rather as a way to relieve nostalgia. I mean, maybe it's nostalgia, but of course, depends on the how much they weigh it as a long-term investment as well. And I'm afraid that as more and more people go into the market, it's gonna lead to the increased chance of the bubble popping. And once the bubble bursts, I don't know what will happen. But I am quite worried that no one has been talking about it, and that's why I'm posting this video. So NFTs and trading cards, TLDR, trading cards and decreased demand from trading cards and NFTs, I'm afraid, is not because people actually personally value them, but because they buy them in the hopes that it will be a long-term investment, that they will sell it to a person who is willing to pay it for a higher price. But there will come a time when the prices for these NFTs and trading cards increase to the point where no one who's rational is gonna buy them, and due to that, it pops, the ball bursts, everyone's savings liquidate, and these are not just gonna affect everyone else. In fact, then they're gonna affect everyone, in a way that these are your employers, these are your colleagues. Them losing their savings are gonna leave a lot bigger dent in the economy than you may think. And I'm saying that because I'm afraid of what this could mean for not just the hobby of collecting cards itself, but also what it could mean for the global economy as well, for what will happen when the bubble bursts. So that's why I made this video, and that's the end. Thank you.